Essentially, Lemaire is a brand that I've always been interested in and I've always liked. And I just like the philosophy, I like the designs, I like the design language, I like the ethos of the brand, I like the quality compared to a lot of where luxury is going these days. However, something that really tickled my fancy and I was like, oh, this is really interesting, let me look deeper into this, is when this article came out via BOF. BOF is, of course, a platform that I've worked for as a writer before and something that I find a very good resource for fashion information. So they had a whole story about how Lemaire has finally hit the $100 million mark and they made $100 million in revenue in a year. So they've been going from strength to strength. And it was really interesting seeing how they analyzed exactly how Lemaire rose to that point, right? So for people that don't know what Lemaire is, or you're not too familiar about Lemaire, Lemaire is what we can describe as a French clothing brand founded by the designer Christophe Lemaire. Christophe Lemaire is very famous in fashion for many different reasons. He was the creative director and head of womenswear at Hermès. He has been a creative director at Lacoste. He's also had different kinds of roles at many other brands like Mugler and YSL. So he's a seasoned fashion designer. He's been in fashion for a very long time. Even the brand Lemaire itself was founded in 1991. Around 2001, when he went to Hermès, he did his brand became dormant for a bit and it was slowly relaunched in 2008. With time, of course, he started to build it back up. And one of the main reasons he actually left Hermès in the first place was to focus on his brand, his eponymous label. So that's just like, an interesting background. I just literally read this for a documentary I'm working on. Oh, a Lemaire documentary. That should be really interesting. I'll be looking forward to seeing that for sure. So yeah, it was very, very interesting. Like I said, Christophe Lemaire was Hermès, went to Lacoste. So yeah, he just does a lot of things. He's also famous for designing at Uniqlo. So Uniqlo U, for people that don't know, is designed by Lemaire, like by Christophe Lemaire and his partner, which is very interesting because we're going to talk about how that fits into current trends and why that makes a lot of sense in the current fashion landscape, but how things changed over time and kind of why that's relevant. So right now on the screen, we have the Lemaire Fall Winter 2022 show. The reason why I put that on the screen is just so while I'm talking about the brand, you guys can see some of the clothing and get to understand what the aesthetic of Lemaire actually is and what the brand stands for. So Lemaire to me is a brand that is known and emphasizes this ability to show this timeless Parisian style. They combine refinement. They also have this idea of creating like a modular way of creating a wardrobe, which I think a lot of brands have been designing this way, but Lemaire has been around for quite a while. So Lemaire was doing this before a lot of the newer brands that are around these days did it, where they give you a cohesive wardrobe. They give you garments where you can wear them day to night. And even when you look at the runway shows, they style things very specifically for you to know that they're intended to be worn day to night. Sometimes you might see someone wearing the typical outfit that someone could wear during the day with a jacket on their back that they could make a night outfit. Or they're wearing a dress, but then they're covering it up so that they can wear it during the day, and then it's intended for them to just remove that jacket or to remove that coat, and the dress underneath is what can be worn at night. So it's very much having, this timeless style where you can build a cohesive wardrobe over time. Now, why I think that's really interesting is you have to remember when Lemaire was founded. Lemaire was founded in 1991. Now, let's transport ourselves into the fashion in the 90s, right? We had the likes of John Galliano, who was making complete noise. We had the likes of Alexander McQueen. We had Karl Lagerfeld Chanel. We had Miuccia Prada doing what she was doing. We had Tom Ford's Gucci. So if you think of all the different things that are going on and this richness of all different aesthetics, it was very hard for Lemaire to really stand out when what fashion was really looking at the time was a lot of different aesthetics, and people were also looking at so many different designers that were buzzing at the time. So people really, to be honest, didn't really have time for too many independent labels. And that's why in the earlier days of Lemaire really, really struggled. And when you move it down to, of course, the brand closed, but when the brand then did start coming back in 2008, of course, Christophe Lemaire's partner then became involved from 2010, and they kind of became co-creative directors, which is still kind of what the situation is. But what I find really interesting about it is even when they decided to come back, even when Christophe Lemaire decided, I'm going to leave as to really focus on Lemaire, think of the time that they came back. This was like 2014 time. In 2014, we were just starting to see the trappings of streetwear slowly be adopted into fashion. That was the first thing we started to see. We also started to see this return to logomania, which by the 2020s, 2019, 2018, 2017, was all the rage. Serious logomania. We came up with terms called hype beast. Of course, hype beast as a platform became a thing. That was really where fashion was going. So once again, Lemaire didn't sit in the current zeitgeist at the time, and Lemaire was struggling to really make its mark financially because of it just never, at any point it just never really sat into the zeitgeist. And they had customers, they were making decent money, but they didn't really have like that core audience that they do now. And they didn't really capture the zeitgeist the same way that they are now. So fast forward to today, the reason why Lemaire is so successful now is because of the pandemic. If you think of the pandemic, everything had to slow down. People really started to think about what they do and don't need. Do I need these clothes? Do I need to keep wearing things that, or even buying things I only wear once because they're so ostentatious, I can't really pair them with many things in my wardrobe. People started thinking about comfort. People started thinking about practicality with their clothing. We had an economic downturn and people were thinking about, okay, even if I spend money on luxury, what can I buy where I can get my cost per wear? And I can actually make the most of what I'm buying rather than just buying all these different things and just having a bunch of stuff. And that's where Lemaire comes in. We also saw later on the trend of quiet luxury as a thing, which Lemaire fits into. And Lemaire was definitely one of the brands that was referenced when we were talking about quiet luxury as a trend. So all these factors smashed into each other is the reason why recently Lemaire has seen insane levels of success. Like absolutely insane levels of success. And it's really impressive because you need to remember that a lot of independent brands have really struggled to stay relevant with the changing face of fashion. We just talked about Y Project. Look at what happened to Y Project and how it closed down. The only brands really that have been able to stay afloat independently, the brands like Jacquemus, brands like Lemaire. So I think anytime you see a brand that's not like Lemaire is not fully independent, they have investors, but anytime you see like a smaller brand that's able to weather the storm in these times, I think it's very commendable and I think it should be celebrated, to be honest. So that is really how Lemaire managed to garner loads of success, even in an economic downturn and even in a whole luxury slowdown that we've observed in fashion as a whole. They were peaking right before the whole quiet luxury moment. Yeah, I think they were perfectly placed to take advantage of quiet luxury as a trend because they embody exactly what quiet luxury should be, not what, some brands are cosplaying it to be. I think a lot of brands, and I think it's because the conversation around quiet luxury was really terrible online. It was very much about either cosplaying rich people or people talking about timeless style, but they didn't talk about everything that's supposed to come with timeless style. So if you're claiming to have timeless style, then you should buy high quality garments because you're supposed to wear garments that last. And that's how you build a wardrobe slowly, because you can buy this trench coat and then you can have this trench coat for 10 years. So you don't need to buy another trench coat. You can buy another piece, maybe some really nice Japanese indigo denim. Then that's in your wardrobe. Then you can continue building. If you just see it as like an aesthetic without the quality or without the ethos, then you're just buying a whole bunch of stuff that's going to go to landfills and it's just waste. And if you see it as a trend, if you see quiet luxury as a trend, it's not your actual style, or you don't care about, dressing in a timeless way, then all you're going to do is just get rid of those clothes and then jump to the next trend, whatever the next trend is. So I think a lot of the conversation around quiet luxury was quite derivative and a bit basic, to be honest. However, from a commercial standpoint, Lemaire was still in the perfect place. Right place, right time. But yeah, I have some figures from the BOF article that I thought were interesting. So essentially, they were talking about how the sales surged, and they said that sales grew tenfold from less than 10 million euros in 2019 to over 100 million euros in 2024, which is absolutely insane. Like making annual revenues of 10 million euros in 2019, and by 2024, having 10x revenues to 100 million euros is absolutely insane. Like, because Lemaire is not, I don't really view Lemaire as like a huge brand, but they are. Like 100 million euros is a massive brand, a really massive brand. And where I think Lemaire differentiates itself in this whole quiet luxury conversation is Lemaire is actually about quality, is actually about craftsmanship. They are actually very deliberate on where they produce, how things are made, all these things, whereas I think that's kind of lost. We saw when I reviewed the list index yesterday how COS has become a trending brand again because of this whole people wanting to have a timeless wardrobe that's more affordable. But, I still think it messes up the conversation around quiet luxury or timeless style. I genuinely think that a lot of the conversation around timeless style is not that great. It's really not that great. Leo says, I actually think many brands fed off quiet luxury, the trend, by offering minimal and reducing their existing designs, but some brands were minimalist and had lots of depth and texture even. Yeah, exactly. Like when you listen to Christophe Lemaire, and I love Christophe Lemaire because he's a really good talker. He's very good with words. He has a really good way with words. He talks about kind of the reasoning why he wanted to start Lemaire in the first place. The reason was he wanted something that was inspired by, everyday wear. He talks about how he's not really that inspired by runaway shows. He's more inspired by streetwear and street style and what he sees people wearing day to day in Paris. And so he wanted a brand that had couture levels of craftsmanship, but with the everyday wearability and modularity of what people actually wear in the streets, which is why the main focus, once again, for Lemaire is to be wearable, but wearable in a nice way. Having those couture level cuts, but still being usable and actually desirable for people to wear and also able to build as a cohesive wardrobe. So that's kind of the point of Lemaire. And you can see that it's not about trends with Lemaire because they've been doing this even when it wasn't trendy. They've been doing this aesthetic even when it actually was to their detriment. When they could see logomania was the thing, they still stuck to their guns, even though they were kind of struggling to find their market financially at those points. When they had to compete with the likes of John Galliano and Lee McQueen and Chanel, Karl Lagerfeld Chanel and Miuccia Prada's Prada and Tom Ford's Gucci and all these things, but yet they still, held through and they were still standing strong. So in the case of Lemaire, it's not really about trends. They just so happened to be there at that time. Al saying train station platform C is insane. I assume Lemaire has very good business practices and structure as well, because that level of growth in 4 to 5 years comes from having your business solid and your creative cohesive. Oh yeah, 100%. I also think a big reason why Lemaire was able to grow so much financially from 10 million euros to 100 million is the price point. You need to remember that the conversations we are having right now in luxury over the past 2 years is very much about how a lot of brands are hiking their prices, but it doesn't really make sense because no one is really seeing a quality increase to justify the prices. And not only are we not seeing a quality increase, we're actually seeing a quality reduction. And so if you want a brand that actually cares about quality, where you get those nice cuts, but it doesn't cost as much as some of these luxury brands where the quality isn't even better than Lemaire anyway, you go to Lemaire. And so Lemaire sits in this perfect place in the market where it's not as expensive as Miu Miu and Prada, but you actually get cuts that in some ways can be more interesting than Prada and Miu Miu cuts for less, and it's high quality still, and some of the pieces are actually better quality than Prada. So they sit in a perfect segment in the market, and a lot of people actually were tired of what they felt was being scammed by these luxury brands. So they actually did appreciate learning about brands like Lemaire when they were looking for alternatives to spend their money, where they can still find interesting pieces that are wearable for them to wear, but not pay out the wazoo for garments with diminishing quality. So I think that's also a big reason why Lemaire just grew from strength to strength. And yeah, and it's really interesting because also Christophe Lemaire saying he wanted to create a brand that was had this couture level craftsmanship, but the wearability of street style. It's kind of cool because this thing kind of filters into everything else he does. If you think of like Uniqlo U, for example, this is an idea of once again bringing this understanding and these cuts to the mass market, right? And Uniqlo U is super successful. There are people online that are so obsessed with Uniqlo U, like every season, they make whole reviews of the whole line. I know people that literally buy the whole lines every season of U, and they do like Uniqlo Fall Winter 24, reviewing the whole collection. That's like a big thing on YouTube, and those videos get loads of views. So clearly it's very successful, and it's allowed a lot of people to have those Lemaire cuts, but, you know, without spending Lemaire money for people that, you know, can't afford it, but still feel part of the dream. And even some people don't even know there's any relation to Uniqlo U and Lemaire. They just like Uniqlo U, which is also a good thing. I also love Lemaire because they use practical materials in the most luxury way. Yeah, so this is actually something that Christophe Lemaire actually talks about. So Christophe Lemaire talks about using fabrics that actually make sense for what they are made for. So I remember there's a recent collection, I think it was Spring Summer 24, but it could have been another collection, that was inspired by a journey to Vietnam. Let me see if I can actually find it on their YouTube channel, because I remember at the time they had all these campaign videos where they were in Vietnam and they went to like Tokyo and stuff. Yeah, you can see it here, right? So Lemaire in Vietnam, right? Like these campaigns. So they had a collection that was actually inspired by traveling to Vietnam. And the really interesting thing about it, right, was when you looked at the garments, the collection obviously emphasized this idea of movement and travel as a means of, one, integrating yourself with a different environment, but also how your style changes and how your wardrobe changes based on like your environment, based on like the temperature, the weather. So the clothing was designed, one, to be travel friendly. It had all these elements, like you could take parts of the garments off and tie them around your body. You could attach different parts of the garments so it was easy to take off and put back on. And then also the fabrics themselves were actually made with the garments, sorry, were made with fabrics that made sense to wear in Vietnam, especially in like, you know, warmer weather. So they had like these lightweight fabrics, these breathable fabrics. So they actually use very specific fabrics to make sure that they're wearable. And not just wearable in the sense of the look, but wearable in the sense of, okay, this fabric is going to be breathable, but also durable for like 10 years, right? So yeah, fabric usage, very important. Very, very important. I've seen people leaking the Spring 2025 collection from the Chinese Uniqlo domain. That's crazy. Vontae Brown says, smart brands keep quality and don't have to waste money on hype, a lot of ads. People come to them if the quality and styles are great. So the funny thing, let's go back to this BOF article. The funny thing that was mentioned in this BOF article, because they did obviously mention that Lemaire doesn't do like crazy marketing the way a lot of other luxury brands do. However, since, you know, having more business people on board, it's kind of a focus. So more recently, they have been working with different influencers, trying to get placements in certain places, working with more ads. And I think that's kind of what is just going to happen when a brand, you know, grows. I think there was a section in the article where it talks about next steps, right? So it says, looking ahead, Lemaire is preparing to open a flagship in Shanghai later this year, while exploring options for an additional Paris location and expansion to the US, currently the brand's biggest e-commerce market. The brand is dipping its toe into advertising and celebrity marketing, running targeted campaigns for store openings and cultural events like sponsored art exhibitions and concerts. So you can clearly see that there is this sense that, okay, moving forward, there are more things that need to be done so that we can actually continue growing as a brand and move forward. So, you know, it's good to keep their quality. They do keep their quality, but I think it's inevitable for every brand to eventually have to start veering more and more into, you know, the ads and kind of being a little bit hyped, because I do think Lemaire is a bit hyped right now. It is. You don't make 100 million euros if your brand isn't hyped, especially the leather goods. People love the leather goods when it comes to Lemaire. It's very futuristic / sci-fi in the styling, which gives it an advantage in a way that it will withstand the test of time. And I mean, Lemaire's styling is one of the signatures of the brand. People talk about this concept of Lemaire layering, right? It's something that I've heard people say a lot. It's like Lemaire has a very specific way of the way that they layer things. When you look at the runway shows or you look at Lemaire in campaigns, that's like a very Lemaire thing that's very known to a lot of people. Let's see what more people are saying. Many brands use pretentious buzzwords like sustainable, quality fabric, etc. for their runways, but sell synthetic fibers. Yeah, I feel like that's most of luxury fashion these days, which is a shame, but it is kind of just what it is. It really is what it is. The Marais and North Face Purple Label have some similar styles, the Asian aspects and attention to details. Yeah, and I mean, Lemaire is very Asian inspired. Coach is asking me if I have Lemaire pieces. Yeah, so I have Lemaire denim. I have one piece from Lemaire and it's denim. But that's because I can't afford most of it. I'm not rich, but I do love it from a distance. In a better sense, the smartest and best brands know how to navigate, how they draw attention. That is more in line with what they are and sell. Oh, yeah. And kind of what you're alluding to earlier, Leo, when you read this article, they talk about, because you were saying that they have good business practices and they're taking things slowly. This is something that they allude to, and the Marais CEO definitely alluded to in this article, right? Where they said, we're being ambitious, we're continuing to be very prudent because we don't have private equity as a majority shareholder or anybody else putting pressure. We'd rather have a scarcity of products that wanting to reach such big sales targets and having a lot of inventory than wanting to reach such big sales targets and having a lot of inventory at the end of the season. Something that stood out to me in this article that I was like, oh, that's really, really impressive. There was a stat that I think they said they have an 80% sale through, which is absolutely insane. Like 80% of their sales, I think, but I need to find the stat specifically where 80% of their sales is like either through e-commerce from their own sites or through their own stores, which is like, I can't remember the last time I heard of that. That is so insane, especially for a brand that isn't like a major luxury brand. That is wild. Oh no, sorry, so they have a full price sell through of 80%, which is insane. And then they have a 50% sale directly from them. So that's either through their website or through their personal stores. So the other 50% is obviously like wholesale, like other stores and then selling through that channel. That's so unheard of. Almost every single brand that is in fashion that isn't a major, heritage luxury house relies close to solely on wholesale accounts. And a lot of brands, the reason why they fold, the likes of Y Project, the reason why they folded, I won't mention other brands, but the reason why a lot of brands that show at Paris Fashion Week, show at Milan Fashion Week, a lot of young brands, the reason why all of them are struggling is because a lot of stores are closing down, which means less buyers for these brands. It's also because buyers now have to be more pragmatic. They can't take as much risk because luxury fashion is such a risky game these days because we're seeing a whole, luxury reset and luxury downturn. So brands are really struggling, like super, super struggling. Like brands are really struggling to sell stuff personally and also to stores. So to have half of your sales come through you is insane. That is so insane. They are in such a good financial position. Like 50% via their stores or their website is like, you need to understand how unheard of that is. That is so unheard of for brands like Lemaire. That is so, like, you don't hear about that. You just do not. Especially for brands selling at that scale. You definitely hear that for brands that barely make any money. Like, they make 100K a year. Well, obviously, you're selling most of your stuff via personal channels, but for a brand to be at 100 million euros and 50 million of their revenue is through their website and their own stores, wild. So I was like, that's really impressive. That says a lot about the core audience that they have, the core customer base that they've been able to garner, and it says a lot about the messaging and branding of the brand that they've been able to do that. That was insane to me. Burberry is one of the top brands that went crazy with pricing, starting to get some sense again after they focus on scarce and important items to help them get growth during Christmas. Yeah, and I mean, Burberry is a brand I've been covering for quite a while, even before Burberry backtracked on the prices. I did the whole live stream where I think it was titled "Why Burberry is Struggling and why it may not get better." And I was talking about the prices just being really silly. It's interesting that now they've backtracked, and even the new CEO, has come out and said, yeah, it didn't make sense for them to raise prices at the rate that they did. And it says a lot, because that really is an admission that luxury brands can just increase prices however they like. And if they see that it's not selling, they can just reduce prices. So they're basically telling you, without meaning to, that it's not worth it. If they can just keep raising and reducing prices when they feel like, it's telling you that what you're paying for is just the name and nothing else. They've almost admitted to that without meaning to. So that's why you have brands like Lemaire that have always had a fairer price, especially for the quality of garments that they make. They are always going to win in a luxury market where these brands are all over the place. But yeah, I think so. All in all, before obviously we go to look at the new collection that Lemaire just did, yeah, yes, it did fit into quite luxury, but I think that Lemaire just it's like clean and wearable with a twist. And that's what makes it nice and interesting. And that's why people love it. It's designed for comfortable daily wear, and it's, something that they actually think about. It's like a focus for the brand. So yes, it's nice. People say it's like sexy but timeless for women. That's why women really like it. There was a quote from the BOF article where they said it's like the perfect Parisian wardrobe. Till today, I don't actually know what people mean when they say like Parisian wardrobe or Parisian style. I think stereotypically when people think of Parisian style, it's just like striped shirts and like black trousers and heels, like pumps and stuff. I don't, sometimes I struggle to understand what people really mean by like Parisian style, because when I go to Paris, the average person just dresses very basic. Like, people don't look chic like the way we stereotype French people. And I go to Paris a lot. I mean, Paris is just a train away from London. People do not dress like a Lemaire runway show. People are not that chic. Maybe people into fashion, but the everyday person doesn't dress like that. So I don't even know where that stereotype comes from. People are saying a navy blazer, denim and loafers, dark blazer and pants. But the average French person just doesn't dress like that, though. That's not how I see French people dressing when I'm in Paris. I think when women use the term Parisian wardrobe, they mean it's comfortable enough to walk around in all day and use the subway, but chic enough to feel polished. Ooh, that's a really good quote to Rachel. I'm going to go with that. Because that's, yeah, comfortable enough to walk around in all day and use the subway, but chic enough to feel polished. And then it helps that Lemaire obviously bakes into the styling how you can wear these things day to night. That definitely does help. Andrew says, I work for Uniqlo. This is just a tidbit, but it's understated how much he has influenced the Uniqlo product pipeline now and upcoming products. I can imagine, because obviously when Lemaire and the whole Uniqlo U thing became a thing, it was huge, and it's been huge since then. And I can only imagine that those things, especially stuff that's selling really well or stuff that has a cult following, those silhouettes are going to inform the more like permanent collection of Uniqlo. That would only make sense. Most companies anyway, when they do collaborations or like collab lines, a lot of times they do inform the permanent collections later. So yeah, I can really understand that, to be honest. But it's good. It's good that that's been the case. I hope also the ethos, because I think generally Uniqlo has that ethos. Like, yes, it is fast fashion, but compared to other fast fashion brands, Uniqlo is less about trends. Uniqlo is not like Zara, where Zara will literally look at the trends on the runway, look at what runway items are selling, and then literally reproduce every single version that they can find. Uniqlo doesn't do that. Uniqlo is still about, giving you a timeless look and a timeless wardrobe at a more affordable price, because it's fast fashion, right? And then they obviously have collaborations with luxury brands, which is why it's over time. I think Uniqlo has been able to have a certain authority over other fast fashion brands. You think of their collaborations with J.W. Anderson, of course, Uniqlo U with Lemaire, all the other collaborations that they do, the fact that they have a White Keller on board. So yeah, that's why all those things inform each other, and it makes for very interesting clothes. Culture says, I can't stand Zara. Yeah, Zara, all they do is just copy. No originality, no, just what is trending. They probably look at the list index and they're like, what are the best selling items? Okay, yeah, let's just produce those. That's literally probably what they do, honestly. But anyway, let's look at the fall winter show that just released. Let's have a look, guys, because I just provided the context so we can then look at the show and see what we like or what we don't like. I mean, typical silhouettes, balloon skirts, the day to night, good leather goods. The wearability is, you can see in some of the looks, for example, they do the styling thing again, like the day to night. Like, look, let me pause this. So something like this is very day to night. Like, you can see the jacket, how it's styled. So all you would need to do at night is just take the jacket off and take the knitted piece off. And you could just wear like a skirt and a shirt. Or you could wear a Lemaire dress. You could wear a dress under that and wear it that way. Lemaire and Demna, most influential of this generation of designers. Yeah, to be honest, so my only critique of Lemaire is I find the menswear really uninteresting, to be honest. I think the women's wear is sensational. It always has been. The menswear is always just like the women's wear, they have those really cool twisted jeans and they have the twisted shirts, like the balloon skirts. The menswear is just a bit lackluster to me. But the women's wear, fantastic. I've always loved Lemaire women's wear, but I just think I've come to understand that that's just the way it's going to be with most brands. I think menswear is an afterthought, and I don't blame them, because if I think of what sells, if you looked at their financials, it's probably a heavy majority of women's wear. Yeah, fashion doesn't care about men, for real. I'm curious to see how these kind of newer luxury brands will do when minimalism is not very trendy anymore. Will they be able to blend or just go to obscurity? That is, I guess, something interesting to see, because to be honest, you have to remember that a good reason why Lemaire is making a lot of money now is because of what the trends are and what people are looking to wear. During the time when, early on in Lemaire's life, when it was about logomania and stuff like that, they weren't making close to the amount of money they're making now, not even remotely close. So it is interesting to see if they can continue to weather the storm. I do think they will be able to, because I think if you think of designers like Phoebe Philo, okay, yes, the demand for her clothes is not as much as it was at Celine. I genuinely think that's more to do with her leaving fashion, there being so many designers that kind of took that mantle, whether that's Rock or Peter Doe or what Daniel Lee was doing at Bottega Veneta at the time. I think there just became too many options doing the same thing. But I think with Lemaire, because they have the customers now, and they have the momentum, I think so long as they continue that, I can't see how they would just overnight stop selling just because the trends changed. Maybe sales would slow down slightly, but I can't see how it would, decimate the brand. I actually can get away wearing women's Lemaire clothes. Yeah, if you can get away with wearing women's Lemaire clothes, I'm jealous. I'm too big for all of that. But if you can fit into it, that's great. Yeah, so they do label clothing as unisex. I always have this conversation. When the brands label things as unisex, it normally just means menswear designed for women a lot of times, because part of what menswear is, like when you think of menswear, what makes menswear, outside of maybe silhouettes, is also the sizing. So I literally can never ever wear anything labeled as unisex because it's normally in women's wear sizes. So unless something says menswear, I don't even look at it because I know it's not going to fit because I'm too tall. So like my inseam is 35 inches. I don't know many designers that make trousers that are 35 inches like inseam. So especially when it's marketed as women's wear, it definitely won't be that long. So that's why every time they're like unisex, I roll my eyes because it's always just tiny sizes and it's just really women's wear. Or like, menswear, like just a plain jacket, but it'll be in some tiny size. So I always roll my eyes when they say unisex. Culture saying the menswear is boring. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. This is what Helmut Lang should have been giving. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know though, because I think people have a certain relationship with certain brands. And so then what happens is, because of people's relationship with certain brands, they start to expect the world. They have this romantic idea of what Helmut Lang is and what Helmut Lang as a brand represents. So I don't think anything that Peter Doe could have done, I think people would have had something negative to say regardless. I think if Peter Doe did the whole minimal thing, which was there was an era of Helmut Lang that was extremely minimal, people would be like, oh my God, he's not trying, blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, there was a time of Helmut Lang historically that was insane, like these astronaut-inspired pieces and stuff. if he does that, people are like, oh, he's trying too hard. I do think that sometimes some critiques of certain designers are disingenuous, sorry. Sometimes it is warranted. I can agree. I mean, I critique designers on this channel all the time, but I do think sometimes I'm observing something and I'm like, yeah, regardless of what they did, people would just have something to say because they have a certain relationship with the brand and they're being too romantic about the brand. They don't want to let it develop in any way. You got to do fashion tips for big boys. I mean, there are certain brands that I gravitate towards because they make clothing for me. So that's why I'm into Yohji Yamamoto. That's why I like Rick Owens. That's why I'm a big fan of Random Identities. Although Stefano Pilati had a fashion neurosis episode recently, and he kind of alluded to the fact that Random Identities might be closing down, which I will cry because Random Identities was such a good price point and everything fits. Like, in fact, I bought in Dover Street Market like 2 years ago or so. I bought this Random Identities suit. And the length, like the inseam, is actually like 39 inches. Remember I said that almost no brand does 35 inseam trousers? For some reason, I don't know why, Random Identities made these trousers that were so long. They were super long for me, so I had to get them tailored. So I love Random Identities. Like, shout out to Stefano Pilati. I'm a big fan, big customer too, but it's closing down apparently. So I'm quite upset about that. I'm really, really upset. Yeah, it was just such a good episode. Hearing him obsess over the heel tabbies was so wholesome. Facts. I do also get the sense that Stefano Pilati wants to try his hand at a big house once again. I do get the sense that he's been itching to go back. I mean, you look at his Instagram and he's talking about all the different things and ideas that he had when he was at Saint Laurent. It's really interesting, to be fair. Just have a look through some of the Lemaire layering throughout the collection. It was really cool. Like, the menswear is just... Sometimes I'm like, if I could respawn as a woman, I would have so much fun with fashion. Like, too much fun, actually. Because people are always like, every time I have these opinions, like, oh my God, if I could respawn as a woman, I'd have so much fun with fashion. And people are like, what's stopping you from wearing women's wear now? And I'm like, have you seen the size of me? I do not fit into women's wear. I don't care who is designing the women's wear. It doesn't fit. Do you think some designers would be more bold in menswear if men overall were more experimental with fashion? Yes, probably. I think the main reason why menswear can be a bit lackluster, or menswear coming from a lot of brands can seem like an afterthought, is probably because the market isn't there. Like, very few men think like me, to be fair. Like, in fashion, and this is why sometimes fashion can be a bubble, because in fashion, people are so open-minded. You work in the fashion industry, you have friends into fashion, everyone's like, wear what you want, express yourself, wear whatever color you want, wear whatever silhouette you want. If skirts is what you like to do that. If you like to paint your nails, do that. And I think that's beautiful. However, once I leave my fashion bubble and I meet everyday run-of-the-mill men, they are so, like, first of all, a lot of them are homophobic. So I think a lot of how they navigate life is through the lens of homophobia, which is like sad. That they can't even be themselves. They're just always like, oh my God, like that's gay. Or that's how the everyday man is. And a lot of men just don't even care about fashion or care about clothes anyway. So sometimes it's more to do with like overall there's not a market. So yes, I wish menswear was more experimental and more interesting. But I understand why brands don't do it. Like, brands have to make money. What's the point of making all this interesting clothing, putting so much product development into clothing just for nothing to sell? It doesn't make sense. So I understand the financial side of it, but as a man that's into fashion, it annoys me a lot. It's really annoying. Can't fight nature. Charles Jeffrey Loverboy, Walter van Beirendonck is bold. Fashion houses take bold choices. Yeah, but then I do have some Walter van Beirendonck pieces, but overall, Walter van Beirendonck is not my style. I would more wear... If Lemaire was as experimental with menswear as they are with their women's wear, I would be buying that stuff. The same thing with... Because that's why I buy Rick. Because Rick is like experimental but still wearable. That's why I buy a lot of Rick. Yohji is kind of the same thing. It's like wearable, but some of the cuts are quite outrageous, but I like it. That's kind of what's fun about it. So my style is more wearable, but with a twist. Where Walter makes those hats and there's that logo with him with a dick, his dick out and stuff. I can't wear that stuff. If I'm being very honest with you, I can't wear that stuff. And Water has like, Water makes, and I'm a big fan of Water by the way, but Water makes what I call alien chic, where some of the clothing that he makes will make you look like some outer space alien. Now, I don't dress that way. I can appreciate it, but I personally don't want to dress like that. So, yes, Charles Jeffrey Loverboy, yes, Walter, they do experimental menswear, but it's not my kind of experimental menswear. Big W on the hat. See, I like the W hat, Walter Van Beirendonck hat. That's why I have it, because it's not too crazy. When Walter starts designing those hats where it has his logo and his dick is out and all that, like, I always imagine, like, as much as, yes, I'm into fashion and all this stuff, if I'm just on the train in London and I'm wearing this hat and Walter Van Beirendonck's dick is, like, embroidered onto a part of the hat, like, what would people actually think? Would people, like, be looking at me in anger because there are kids on the train and, you know, they shouldn't be seeing stuff like that? I think about stuff like that also, about like decency, the decency of what I wear. So even though I wear crazy experimental things, there's like a limit to it. Here once again we see the details that I talk about. A lot of Lemaire pieces have like this ability where you can button things up and wear like coats on your shoulder with this strap. And then, of course, you can take it off and wear this coat over your piece. So it's kind of, one, promoting this idea of the whole day to night thing, but also the modularity of the clothing. And also showing that Lemaire is all about comfort of and ease of wear. It's really about that. Some really cool details too that they always have on the garments. I also love the shape of Lemaire footwear. A lot of the Lemaire footwear has this like really round toe box that's really recognizable shape-wise. I absolutely love that shape. And it's the same toe box for a lot of their footwear. A lot of their footwear just has a very like rounded toe box. Did someone say the glizzy hat? That's funny. You talking about Walter Van Beirendonck? That's hilarious. What I want to do now that we've looked at the collection, I mean, I talked about Uniqlo U earlier, but on Uniqlo U's website, like their page, they literally talk about it. Uniqlo U is a collection of future lifewear essentials led by artistic directors Christophe Lemaire and Sarah Lynn Tran. The world-class designers and pattern makers in the Paris design team reimagine everyday clothing using innovative materials and new contemporary silhouettes. So yeah, they're very, very cool stuff. Of course, you have a picture of Christophe Lemaire and Sarah Lynn Tran. So yeah, but what I want to do is just have a gander on their website, see what they're working on, see what things are costing these days. Let me make myself smaller on the screen so I'm not in the way of the website. Let's see, guys. Let's see what the prices are. Like I said, Lemaire prices are fair though. So let's look at women's ready to wear because we're not looking at the menswear. Hell no. Like the very interesting t-shirts in Jersey, 230. Remember, guys, we were seeing Prada selling basic cotton print t-shirts for £700. And then with Lemaire, you get these really nice ones with these sort of pussy bows for 230. So can you see why people are going to buy Lemaire and why Lemaire makes a lot of money? In a fashion market where Prada sells atrocious t-shirts for £800, Lemaire sells way more interesting pieces for 230. So of course they're going to win. Like, of course people are going to buy Lemaire. Of course the people that used to buy that stuff are going to buy Lemaire. So this is one of the signatures of Lemaire that I'm a big fan of. It's like, they just like twist things, and a lot of Lemaire pieces have this very distinctive asymmetry. So like they have a twisted cardigan, they have the twisted shirt. That's obviously like really, really famous. Like people that are fans of Lemaire love this stuff. This is one of their big staples. They have the twisted trousers too. I love the twisted denim the most. I think the twisted denim is really, really nice. Here you can see the shirts once again, the belted pants. And the shape, overall, the shape of their trousers where they kind of curve on the sides, outwards and inwards. I just love that shape of Lemaire trousers. Every time I see someone wear Lemaire trousers, it always looks good. It always looks so good. Always, always so good. Yeah, they sometimes do they have like a boxy silhouette with these jackets. They do. Even their tailoring is very boxy. I mean, you can see it across the blazers, the denim jacket, the leather crop jacket. Here they have some more asymmetrical shirt dress. But like the prices, when you think yesterday we were looking at Prada and Miu Miu prices, and then you just compare it to this, it's honestly night and day. And Lemaire is good quality, and that's why I always tell people like there's a cap on how much good quality should cost. And so Lemaire is still like charging quite a bit, but I think it's fair because you understand that, you know, it's luxury. You're paying for it in a way. You're kind of paying for the name and all that sort of stuff. But it's so like I'd look at all the prices of Le Mans and I'm like, okay, fair, 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 fair. I was looking at Prada and I was like, that's dumb. Like the Miu Miu prices, that's stupid. Like people that buy this must be luxury victims because I don't understand why anyone would buy off the rack blazers for 8K or why anyone would buy a printed cotton t-shirt for £800. I don't even know why there's a market for that. Like I didn't know that customers were that bad. Yeah, Lemaire does have good sales too. That is facts. That is facts. I actually feel like if I was wearing Lemaire head to toe, I would feel a lot better about myself than wearing Prada head to toe. Probably because Prada is ultra mainstream, and so loads of people wear Prada. Less people wear Lemaire, so it feels more special. It feels more individual, you know? That's why I would feel a lot better wearing Lemaire than I would Prada. And this is not to say I don't like Prada, by the way. I'm a big Prada fan, especially with the women's wear. I just don't think the prices make any sense anymore. That's all. But the clothing itself is nice, a lot of it. Twisted cardigan once again in their signature twisted designs, and then a scarf paired with it. But yeah, very, very, very clean. And it's obviously informed by a lot of what Christophe Lemaire has done in the past. Like I alluded to earlier, he was designing women's wear at Hermès at one point. And I always wonder if a lot of the customers of Hermès at the time learnt about Christophe Lemaire then and were like, oh, this guy's really interesting, let's follow his career. And they followed him to Lemaire, became Lemaire customers when he left Hermès. Because the reason he left Hermès, for people that don't know, that just joined, was because Lemaire started to slowly pick up steam and he decided that it would make a lot more sense for him to devote his full time to his own brand. So I wonder how many Hermès customers he was able to bring over to Lemaire. Pajamas, really cool. But yeah, you guys get the point. It's just really timeless, cool stuff with a twist, well made, very wearable. Yeah, this is the shape of Lemaire trousers that is so distinctive and I always love it every time I see it. It always looks good. I wish this stuff was long enough. Like if Lemaire wake up one day and they start making 35-inch inseam trousers, I will literally find a Lemaire store somewhere and buy it. Because when I think of my personal wardrobe, the weakness of my wardrobe is trousers. I buy Comme des Garçons un plus shorts. It's the perfect silhouette for my body type. They're like wide and they're kind of boxy and they kind of look like a skirt when you close your legs. I don't know what sorcery they've done with the silhouette, but Comme des Garçons un plus shorts, they literally, when you close your legs, the silhouette looks like a skirt. Like sometimes people are like, are you wearing a skirt? And then I'll like move my leg and then people see it's shorts. It's so cool. I love the shape of their shorts. So I'm sorted for shorts. Trousers, I struggle. I've tried so hard. Like, who makes interesting trousers that are my size? I struggle. When it comes to everything else, I've got Yoji, Rick, so many brands. So yeah, the second Lemaire wakes up and decides we're just going to make the trousers slightly longer, I'm going to be the biggest Lemaire fanboy. But I can't really be a Lemaire fanboy for now because I can't really wear most of it, even though I like it. Also, something I really want to look at actually, because this is really big for Lemaire, the accessories. We didn't actually talk about the bags, but bags and also... Actually, not just bags. Bags, jewelry, and footwear, massive categories for Lemaire. Huge. Like the cross bag is huge for Lemaire. I'm trying to think. I don't know the exact name of the footwear, but let's have a look. But I know their footwear sells like crazy. I always see women in the footwear. Yeah, like these... What are they called though? I don't know what they're called, but this shape of footwear, people love this stuff. They had pump versions. I'm not sure if they still have the pumps, but those went absolutely insane. These heels... Funny enough, these heels actually remind me of Random Identities. Like there was a heel that Random Identities did. I don't know who inspired who, but they almost look very similar. Obviously, Lemaire has the very distinctive rounded toe that I really love. But these, the reason why people love these, they go with absolutely everything. Like they're even sold out. Like look, they're sold out and they cost £660. Like these sell like hotcake. I know so many people that own these. So many of my friends that work in fashion own those. So those sell like absolute hotcakes. I'm trying to see, do they still sell the pumps? Because I know the pumps were huge at one point, but do they still have those on their website? Or are they experimenting with different styles? Seems like they don't have, but they have like different versions like slippers, zipped boots, the longer versions, which are cool, ballerina. Let's go back to the bags once again. Obviously the croissant bags, like I've said, have gone absolutely triple platinum for Lemaire. They have it in like, look at how many versions of the croissant bag they have. Small, big, large, wide, mini. Different shapes and sizes. The tote bag, the belted tote bag is really cool. I'm trying to see what Lemaire bags that they have that I'm really unfamiliar with. But most of these are just the croissant bags. Because I see people wear different Lemaire bags. Not just the croissant bags. Let's see what else they have on their website. A whole lot of croissant. To be fair, I haven't really seen too many people wearing these crossbody net shopping bags, but that's interesting. They look cool. I can see why people would buy it though. Yeah, I see. So I see people wearing stuff more like this, like like the satchels, and they wear it exactly in this way too. That's normally how I see people styling Lemaire. But the net bags are interesting. I haven't seen those. I haven't seen people wear those. Lemaire did a bag for Uniqlo that sold like crazy. Yeah, that tends to be the story with anything that Lemaire does with Uniqlo. Like whatever they touch at Uniqlo, it just turns to gold. Egg bag is really nice. Really, really nice. I didn't actually realize that they had this many iterations of the croissant bag. I was not aware. They're like, any way you want this croissant bag, we're going to give it to you. So by the end of it, you will find a croissant bag that you like, by force, by fire. Yeah, it's all I will say. Honestly, I think it's very commendable, the success they've had. I love the philosophy of the brand. I love Christophe Lemaire's ethos for the brand. I think it's really, really good. I'm a big fan of it. This sort of like timeless wardrobe with a twist and good quality garments. I love it. I love it. I'm a big Lemaire fan. And it's very interesting how they've been able to situate themselves perfectly. Like the timing of their aesthetic is perfect now. And it'll be cool to see how it develops, especially when this whole obsession with quiet luxury slows down. Will they still stand the test of time? I believe they will. But let's see if they can make the right business decisions. And there are very, very difficult decisions that are to be had in the near future. So yeah, that will be the case. Let me see what you guys are saying, and then we'll move to Dries Van Noten. I always get suspicious when brands have crazy selection, like I know it's poorly made then. Yeah, that's true. If there are just too many things. Because the thing about, like people don't know, but designers watching this will know. I've worked at so many brands, so I know this to be true. When a brand has one item that sells really well, and they just make different iterations of that item over and over again, they actually improve the item because they're like, designers are always thinking, how can I make this bag better next season if I reproduce this? How can I make it better? How can I make this better? And so you always see there are always different design elements that are added season to season. So it makes for a bag that actually stands the test of time, and a lot of product development goes into it. Also because they can afford to do that. Because if a certain product is making a brand so much money, it only makes sense to really invest more money into improving the bag, right? Whereas if you just have like 50 styles of bag, it's all over the place. And it would cost you so much money to develop new styles of bags. So it's not even cost effective. Avante says a lot of these brands are losing money or closing down because people are tired of the same looks. The people are making their pieces with the 90s aesthetic. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, we've seen loads of brands close down. And brands that I love, by the way, like brands that I'm a big fan of. We saw that with Y Project. We saw that with Dion Lee, although I'm not too sure what happened with Dion Lee. I think Dion Lee found investors to keep the brand afloat. But yeah, it's just a tough luxury market these days. It's really, really tough to survive in this luxury market. It's hard. It's really, really hard. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for coming to my TED Talk. Like I said, if you have a BOF subscription, definitely check out this article. It's really, really insightful. It's really good. The philosophy behind Lemaire's $100 million ascent. Really, really, really good article. I feel like BOF should pay me royalties at this point. The amount of times I tell people to check out BOF articles. Like, where are my royalties? This is probably why they don't mind, because technically, I always think about this to myself, and maybe one day, because I'm saying this now, someone's going to send me a message in a DM, but you have to pay for BOF, right? But I literally go through BOF articles in the stream. So technically, what I'm indirectly doing is I've paid for it and you guys don't have to pay for it because I'm kind of reading it to you. But what I try to do is not read everything in the article, so you still kind of have to read the article for yourself. That's the way that I do it. And BOF have never had an issue with it. They actually like it. Like sometimes I remember I'm in like the internal newsletters of BOF. There have been times when I've talked about a BOF article and it's gone viral. And they've literally put my face in the BOF newsletter internally. So I think they kind of like that I just talk about BOF all the time. But it's interesting how the business of that works. But I'm gonna need my royalties at some point. Yeah, maybe because of fair use they can't do anything. Maybe. Potentially, who knows?